Good morning, fellow paper crafters, and thank you so much for tuning in to watch my live video. Now, I'm going to start by apologising. I did miss last Friday. I was planning on uploading a video that I'd pre-recorded, and then I remembered through trial and error that doesn't work very well where I am. So here I am on Tuesday with another Technique Tuesday for you all. And today I'm hoping to inspire you a little bit, or maybe it's give you a bit of confidence about using a 12-inch trimmer. You may or may not have had this problem, but hopefully by me chatting and talking through what I'm about to show you, it might give you a little bit more confidence or something, inspiration maybe, for you to use your 12-inch trimmer. So welcome to my video. My name is Charlotte Burns. If you're watching on the replay, hashtag relax, because I'm a bit of a weirdo and that just makes me smile. So today I want to talk about 12-inch trimmer. Now I use the Fiskars Shortcut Deluxe Craft Paper Trimmer. That's what that's called, because I managed to get it through close to my heart, and I have just fallen in love with it. There are lots and lots of things that I love about this trimmer. One of possibly the main things, apart from there's a lock up there, is this blade. It is removable from the, I call this the arm. This is one of the arms. Actually, now that I'm talking about it, this is one of the arms, and then this is the other arm. I don't use this arm very much, but I do use this arm a lot. In fact, every time I use my paper trimmer, I use it because I have to lift the arm to put my paper underneath. Anyway, I digress. So one of the main things I love about this paper trimmer is this blade here. I call it a V blade because if I turn it that way, it looks like a V. And that allows me, as opposed to, say, for instance, a rotary blade, it allows me to get very precise cuts on my paper. And that's what I'm talking about today, cutting paper. So let's bring some paper underneath. Ta-da! This is just an old piece of cardstock that I've got. When I say old, it's a retired colour, so I'm more than happy to use this as a scrap piece of paper. And today I'm talking about getting a nice straight cut. So when you buy a piece of paper, cardstock or pattern paper, glitter paper, whatever you're using, usually there are 4 sides and they're all nice and straight, or they should be at least. When we cut our paper, obviously we want to get a nice straight cut. So what we do is we put it in here, and then we drop our arm and we cut. We can use scissors, but generally speaking, if you're using scissors, you won't get as straight a cut as when you're using a paper trimmer. Now, a couple of tips about this. With this particular paper trimmer and most paper trimmers, there is kind of a bit of a lip. If I turn the paper trimmer like this, you might see it. So here, there's a bit of a lip down the bottom, and there's another one up the top, up there. So when I put my paper onto my paper trimmer, it stops it from going above this line here, which is the 0 point, or it stops it from going below this line here. Now that little lip should be perfectly straight, okay? Should be. If it's a good paper trimmer, and you'll know if it's a good paper trimmer because you've probably paid a fair amount of money for it, if it's a good paper trimmer, that particular line should be straight. And every paper trimmer should have one because it helps us cut things. Now you can see I've got my paper at the bottom of my paper trimmer. This is longer than 12 inches and I've got it at the bottom, and I've also got my blade at the bottom. If I was to cut going up, and say for instance I held my paper here and I cut going up, I don't know if you noticed, but my paper just moved. And that's the biggest tip today that I want to give you. If you want to get a nice straight cut from your paper trimmer, have your blade at the opposite end to where your paper is. So if my paper is down the bottom, and as I said, this is just a scrap piece of cardstock that I'm cutting, another tip, don't be afraid to cut cardstock and make a mistake, okay? This piece of paper doesn't cost that much money, really, and I'm only going to use a little bit of it. So if I want a nice straight cut, I'll put my blade at the opposite end to where my paper sits on the ledge. So I've got my blade at the top, my paper at the bottom, and that way when I pull down, even if I don't hold the paper and I don't hold the arm, it's actually driving the paper onto that ledge and keeping it straight, which will give me, I won't use that as an example, which will give me a nice straight cut. Now, with these blades, as I showed before, it is a V blade. So if you then want to cut up, which uses the other side of the blade and keeps your blade working for longer, you will then need to put your paper at the top of your trimmer and along the ledge at the top of your trimmer, and then cut up. And we can cut any width that we want, but let's make it a decent width that we can see at 1/2 inch. So again, I don't have to hold anything, and if I slide that up, the paper will stay in place, and it'll give me another nice straight edge like so. So that was the main thing that I wanted to show you today, was to get a nice straight edge, and you probably already know this. To get a nice straight edge, have your paper pressed up hard against the ledge on your paper trimmer with the blade at the opposite end to your paper trimmer, and that will allow you to have a nice straight edge. Now, just a little bit of extra information I wanted to give is, with the V blade type of trimmers, what you can also do is something that I like calling gutting your page. Now, it sounds terrible. It's not. I'm going to give you an example. Here's a page that I have done a while ago. So this is a 12-inch page, and you can see around the outside it's got this beautiful pattern paper. It's still in the memory protector. Gorgeous pattern paper. And then over the top I have a black piece of cardstock, and over the top of that I have a white, it's actually a cream piece of cardstock. Because this is covering this entire piece of pattern paper, and the pattern paper is really quite pretty, I didn't want to waste the pattern paper, for one. And for two, I didn't really want all of these layers being really thick. So what I've done is I've gutted the pattern paper. And if I flip it over, you'll see that there's black in the middle here, or I've actually cut out the middle of this paper here, preserving this piece, and I've then used it on other scrapbook layouts. And you can do that with scrapbook layouts, you can do that with cards and any papercraft project that you want to use it on. So it's a really great way of reducing the thickness of your paper and also preserving paper. And I'm going to show you how to do that. With this page, what I've done, I'll just grab my ruler. This is actually part of my T-ruler. It's really handy to have this little section here. So what I've done is I will have measured how big, or I will have known because I've cut it, how big this black piece is. Now, that will be, that's 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.5 inches by the looks of things. So this is 9.5 inches square. A little bit of math involved. All you need to do is figure out how much space there is on each side. So if it's 9.5 inches, then it would have been 9.5, 10, 2.5 inches there. So it's about 1 1/4. Let's check that. So yes, 1 1/4 inch gap is what I needed. Increase the amount of gap that you need, so because it obviously needs to overhang a little bit. So where I needed at least 1 1/4 inch, I probably cut it at about 2 inches to give myself a really good gap. Let's flip it over and check. I might have done it at 1 1/2. I actually did it at 1 3/4. So then you cut a border 1 3/4 inches around the inside of the page. Now what I'm going to show you in addition is how to cut down a piece of cardstock so that you can use it as a frame to measure photos if you want to trim photos down. So here I've got a photo, And if I wanted this to be, say, 4 inches by 4 inches, it's currently 6 inches by 4 inches. And if I want to see where I want to cut the photo, isn't this a gorgeous photo of Darren and I mucking around? If you can see my face, I've got smudges of face paint, and Darren's actually had his face painted. I'm not sure. I think either our eldest daughter Josephine painted his face and probably painted my face as well, and then he's come and attacked me. It was quite a funny memory, actually. Scrapbooked that the other day. But if I want to make this, if I want to trim this down to 4 inches by 4 inches, one of the easiest way I've found is to create a frame that I can then hold over the top of the photo. Now, you can cut your piece of paper any size you want. I'm going to do it 6 inches by 6 inches just because I can. So 6 inches, and notice I had the blade at the top, as I mentioned before, and the paper down the bottom. Turn this around. My blade is now at the bottom, so what I can do is lift this up to the top and cut up. So I've now got a piece of paper that is 6 inches by 6 inches, and I want to cut a hole out of the centre that is 4 inches by 4 inches. So do some maths. 6 inches, take away 4 inches is 2 inches. So I need a 1 inch border around each of the sides, and here's how we do it. With my trimmer, and with most trimmers, I have measurements going along the top, and I have measurements coming down the side as well. So I need to have my paper at the top so I can use these measurements here to come in and down. I want, as I mentioned, an inch in from each of the sides to cut that centre out. So I'll come across to the 1 inch line here, line that up. I'll lower my arm down without putting it on the paper. I'll bring my blade, and it's got to pull this out off and show you. I've showed you this before, but I'll show you again if we can get that to focus. It's actually got a cross that shows me exactly where the blade sits underneath, which is fantastic. I love that about these. So it's got this line here, and I line that up with the 1 inch mark. As I said, I want a 1 inch border all the way around my 6 by 6 page to give me a 4 by 4 hole. So I put my arm down. Now that hasn't pierced, the blade hasn't pierced the paper until I push down. I push down, and then I bring it down to 1 inch from the bottom, which is 5 inches. So there's my 5 inch mark there. I stop, I don't go all the way to the bottom, and I lift my arm up, and I have a cut from 1 inch down to 5 inches. I rotate, line it up with 1 inch. Knowing that I need it 1 inch from the bottom, I can leave my blade there, drop and cut up to 1 inch again. Rotate again. My blade is already at 1 inch, which is fantastic. Drop my arm and bring it back down to 5 inches. Rotate one more time. That's lined up at 1 inch. Drop and go up to the 1 inch mark. And what that gives me is my 6 by 6 piece of cardstock. And this ends up being 4 inches by 4 inches. I'm not going to take this and hold it over the top of the photo to see where I'm going to cut, because I can't see what's going to be cut. No, what I want to do is take my frame, then I can hold this over the top of my photo, and I can move it around to see. I might move that out the way and put it down. I can move it around to see exactly where I want to trim my photo. Now, if you want a couple of tips on trimming photos, what I highly recommend is when you're looking, try and have things, you can have them in the middle. Also have a look at what is showing in the background of your photo. So if I decided, actually I want it slightly off, I've then got this, it's actually a bottle of Dettol, I think there. I don't want that in the background, so I want to get rid of that. I'll move it so when I cut my photo, that's out of the picture, and then just double check and see if I'm happy with the framing of that, and that looks really good. So now in my mind, I know I need to cut right at the edge of that bottle of Dettol. I'll grab my trimmer, turn my photo around, and sometimes this takes a little bit of bravery to cut photos, especially if these are old photos, and this one is from 1999 because I don't have the film anymore. So I'm lining this up, so I'm cutting off that bottle of Dettol, and I've actually cut it a little bit too short, which is fine. Better to cut it so that it hasn't quite cut out than it's too much. And then I'm going to just have a look. It's going to cut roughly on there. Happy with that. Slice that down, and now I have my 4" by 4" photo, which I was easily able to size up by using my frame. And there you have it. That is how you can get a really nice straight line with a 12" trimmer, just by holding your paper and your tongue. Sometimes you need to hold your tongue in the right place too. Hold your paper at the opposite end to where your blade is, and then when you slide down, you are less likely for the paper to move. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope that you have learned something, and maybe that will inspire you to go and do some paper crafting and overcome the fear of making a mistake. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you'll tune in next time. Stay safe, keep crafting, and bye for now.